All right, folks, I'm chatting with my friend Rob Knight. He's an amazing photographer. He's one of those photographers that gets to go all around the world showing people how to become better photographers. He teaches workshops and, as well as being an accomplished photographer. He shoots Lumix or Micro Four Thirds based cameras. We're going to talk about that a little bit, as well as just sort of why he does what he does. So, Mr. Rob Knight, welcome to This Week in Photo.
Thanks a lot, Manny.
Hey, it's good to have you. It's good to have you on. Okay, let's start it off. So, history and photography, right? So, have you been doing this your entire life, or was this one of those late in life epiphanies, and you're like, you know what, I'm done with this accounting thing. I'm going to be a photographer. How did you get into it?
Pretty late in life. Yes, I guess about 13 or 14 years ago. I've always liked to travel, and I remember. I think we went to Reno, Nevada, and I was there for a tattoo convention. I was in the tattoo business for about 25 years, and I bought this camera just almost as a whim on the way out the door to go drive around Lake Tahoe, and had fun. Just clicked the shutter a few times, and then I guess a couple of months later, I got a calendar and I was looking through this calendar, and I see what was one of the pictures that I had taken at Lake Tahoe.
Oh.
And I was like, wait a minute, how did they get this? So I get the picture out of the little film envelope and compare it, and it was from exactly the same spot.
Huh.
And I thought, so here's this picture that's this published photo, and it looks exactly like something that I made. So maybe I hack for that. Maybe my artistic background would help me be a photographer.
Sure.
And so I went and hang out with my friend Brad Kay, who's a commercial photographer here in Atlanta. And I said, Brad, why is this a good picture? And he started about composition and things like that, and it's been all downhill from there. So
awesome. So we'll talk about the kinds of photography you do. So in the beginning, I talked about you're traveling around a lot. So is that the niche you found, travel, and then when you get to the destination, it becomes landscape and that sort of thing, or are you a sort of a jack of all trades photographer?
Kind of a generalist, but the thing that inspires me the most is traveling, is going to that new place and trying to sort of bring home a sense of that I can show to people. And I've always been drawn to nature photography and landscape and that kind of thing. So I like to travel and then shoot in the woods, kind of.
And then when you get there? So take me through from beginning to end, the workshop itself. So you're on the website. I'm a customer and I want to come on a Rob Knight adventure, right? So I go to the workshop.
Sure.
Then what? Take me through all the way the steps to me clicking the shutter at some exotic location.
Gotcha. Well, one of the things that I strive to do for my workshops is provide an experience as much as a photography experience. You know what I mean? We're not necessarily doing everything with a camera in your hand. I always say that I want you to have a wonderful experience, a fun journey, and make great pictures along the way. So I like to take people places that I'm confident that there's options to make great pictures. There's opportunities to make great pictures, and then through that, use it as an opportunity to explain. If you're trying to capture X, Y, and Z, then you might want to, make this change to your camera. Might want to use this particular lens or whatever it is. And I always say I look for this face.
The confused face.
When previously trying to do something and can't figure out how to make it work. Right. And then I'll step in and say, okay, now what is it that you're trying to accomplish? Because what I don't like is to line people up and tell them which way to point their camera and what photo to make. Right. I don't really have any interest in doing that for people. I want to help you make the pictures that you want to make, and help you be yourself.
Yeah. Now, so then, when you're on location, how do you select the locations that you go to? Because I know you've been to where have you been? Because I know you've been to some tropical areas, and what's on the list?
I Rica. I went there for the first time I think 7 years ago, and obviously but the people are really wonderful. And that's what I fell in love with, and why I keep going back to Costa Rica. But I've been to Europe a few times and traveled around the United States quite a bit. But I will where I know, like I said, I know I'm going to take you somewhere where you can make a great picture.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I love the idea. People always ask me, well, why don't you go, go here or go there? And I would love to, but I want to go ahead of time and scout it out and decide where I'm going to take you and what time of day we should go and that kind of thing. And at this point, I have a 2-year-old and I have another baby on the way next month. So
Oh, congratulations.
thanks, man. I'm kind of limited in my scouting opportunities, So
Yeah, but that's a good point you bring up there, because that little vital piece of photography is what a lot of photographers kind of miss, right? It's the scouting piece. You go,
mm,
a lot of us, me included, photographers think, okay, you know what, I'm just gonna put myself in a situation with my gear, and I'll make some great photos when I get there. Like
sure,
I'll take a drive up to Yosemite, and it's Yosemite. Of course, there are going to be photos there. So I'm gonna take pictures. Where a little bit of planning beforehand could lead to even better pictures. So that, okay, I'm going to get a shot of El Capitan here. I know the sun is going to be around this time, so I'm going to make sure I'm here at this time to get that particular shot. Then I'm going to go
right.
over there. I'm going to get the waterfall and the snow on the ground, so I'm going to make sure I have so and so. So you can think through it rather than being a photographic opportunist, right? Is that
Right.
a good way to think about it?
Absolutely, absolutely. I just saw a presentation a friend of mine gave last night, and he was talking about preparedness for landscape photography,
Mm-hmm.
and that was one of the things. If you show up, and especially when it comes to landscapes, if the light's not right, then you're not going to make that great picture.
Right.
Great pictures are made in great light when you're, and well, I was going to say when you're talking about landscapes, but with anything, a great portrait is made with great light, whether you make that great light or you come upon it. So. You get to a spot and the light's not perfect, then, use your phone and check the compass and decide, well, is this going to be better in the morning or the evening, and then come back if you can. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
definitely one of,
there's some great tools out there for that too. There's an
sure,
iOS app. I think it may be on Android as well, but it's called the Photographer's Ephemeris.
absolutely,
Yeah, so
sure,
that is one of those tools that you take out there to say, okay, the sun's going to be coming up over there, and the shadows are going to be over here, or or conversely, hey, I want to get a shot of that, but the sun's going to be right there when I want to get this shot.
exactly.
Probably not a good idea to be here tomorrow at noon, right?
Right, absolutely, and that's one of the great things I think about going on a workshop. You can, as a photographer, especially, you want to go to the good places at the right times.
Yeah.
So when you go with an experienced guide, then you're going to be at the spot to make the picture at the right time, and it takes some of the guesswork and some of just the work out of it.
No,
You can go.
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was going to say you can go to beautiful places, but just like if you go at the wrong time of day, then you're just not going to make the best shot.
Yeah, and you'll be disappointed. Yeah, I mean, just to hammer it home, a lot of folks think that, hey, I'm going to build this ultimate kit. It's going to have every lens I need in it. It's going to have bodies in there. I'm set. I got the world's best tripod. I understand lighting and composition and f-stops and shutter speeds. I understand all that, so I'm equipped. So you can drop me anywhere, and I can make a good
Right.
shot.
Yep.
Which unfortunately is not the case, because
Not the
planet
case.
rumor has it the planet is round and is spinning, and we're going around this big hydrogen ball that lights us. Everything changes all the time, so you have to do a little bit more planning than just have the weaponry available for battle, right?
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
got an email recently from I won't say the name of the company, but they have a book coming out that's how to make great photos in any situation.
Oh,
And I thought
okay.
that is a pretty
Any.
neat trick. So
Yeah, that's a pretty
any and
broad.
every situation, yes. So
Okay, so how about I'm on the dark side of the moon with ISO 100 film? How about that? And I'm shooting
exactly.
aliens that are made of coal.
Right. Or just I want to take a picture of my running around and I don't have a flash and it's nighttime. Like,
Right.
okay, tell me how to make a great picture, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Piece of advice: stay away from the words any, every, all. Those. They just don't work. Lawyers will tell you that. Okay. All right. So let's talk about gear a little bit. So on these adventures that you're going on, I know you and I hung out. Where was it? New York. We were hanging out in New York. Remember? And we
Sure.
were at the Photo Plus Expo, and we were talking about gear choices, and you shoot Panasonic Lumix cameras. So tell me about your
Right.
decision to shoot that over something with a larger sensor in it. Because at the time, I remember I was still getting my brain around, smaller sensor versus APS-C, or Micro Four Thirds versus APS-C versus full frame. How can you
Right.
possibly get the quality you need out of the little sensor, the smaller sensor? So,
That
how do you come to it?
well, the technology's come so far so fast, especially when it comes to Micro Four Thirds. You've got two big electronics companies pushing the envelope, and basically competing directly. So, Lumix us know that if their next camera is not the best one, then you'll just get the other guy's camera,
Yeah,
and use all your same lenses. It's not like you'd have to sell your whole kit.
yeah.
But for me, everybody throws around that term, the mirrorless advantage. But for me, that mirrorless advantage is really a Micro Four Thirds advantage, and the advantage is the small sensor because I can glass.
Yeah.
If you have an APS-C sized mirrorless camera, you're going to have APS-C sized lenses, and if you have a full frame mirrorless camera, you're going to have full frame sized lenses. So the skinny camera is not really, that doesn't benefit me because I need to carry lenses. I need to carry most of it on my back, really. And with the Lumix gear, I mean, I just got back from the Carolinas Nature Photographers Expo in Raleigh, and I did a couple of talks for the group, and then I was kind of the booth guy for the Lumix booth all weekend.
Yeah.
And get a kit from Tom, so I had to take my luminary loadout, and in my Think Tank roller bag, I've got 6 bodies and 10 lenses.
Jeez. That would be a truck if you were shooting larger.
Indeed.
Yeah.
In the same bag that my D3S and 3 Nikon lenses and a speed in, and it would be packed full.
Yeah.
So just that in particular, that's the advantage for me.
So the size, weight, portability, all that stuff, that notwithstanding, coming from Nikon, as I am, what about the quality, right? So you can have the smallest, lightest gear in the world, but if your photos don't match up to what you were shooting on your larger sensor, then what's it all for? A lot of people say, I'll just lug around the heavy stuff for a little bit to get the better shot than carry around a small sensor and sacrifice quality. Now, is that a factor for you?
It was a factor for me. I got my first Micro Four Thirds cameras, I guess a little over 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and I got it like a lot of people do, just as a kick around, kind of take on vacation camera, nothing serious.
Yeah.
And I used that. It was an Olympus, and then the EM5 came out, and I got that. I guess I had just gotten my D800E Nikon.
Oh wow! Yeah.
I had, as far as anybody knows, I had at least one of the first handfuls in the state. So I got it through NPS, and I thought I was pretty hot stuff.
Yeah,
but
I'm important.
Exactly. And but then I got the EM5 right after that, and basically the Nikon didn't come out of the bag for about 5 months. And I thought at that point, I was like, well, I'm going to use this Olympus, but then when I feel like I need that full frame, I'm going to pull that out. And I just never got to that point. The images look great, everything's sharp. I like the color. It was great. So I ended up selling that stuff, and I made a profit on half of my lenses because I had bought them a couple of years before, and then after that was the tsunami, so everything was kind of harder to come by, and the MSRPs were actually up on all the glass, so I made money on selling my Nikon lenses. And where'd
you sell them, on eBay or Craigslist?
Yeah, Craigslist. Yeah. Sold them all locally. So when I guess it was last January when I met Tom Curley at the Lumix booth at Imaging USA here in Atlanta, I picked up the GH3, and it just seemed really familiar to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All the buttons were where I expected them to be. It felt good. It just feels like a camera.
Yeah.
And it's still small. It's large compared to the GM1, but compared to an APS-C DSLR, it's still tiny.
It's like the Papa Smurf, right?
Right. Totally.
Still a Smurf, but it's a little bit bigger than the other ones.
Exactly. And I mean, I literally went home and ordered that day, and I just wasn't using the Olympus anymore because it's so much easier to use the GH3. Yeah. And the image quality, I mean, with the 16 megapixel Micro Four Thirds sensor, they make good pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if I was going to shoot at ISO 25,000 all day long, I would feel like I needed a bigger chip, but I'll shoot up to ISO 1600, 3200, no sweat, and I'm very pleased with the result.
Now, is that your main
I
camera,
don't.
the GH3, or is it the GX? Was it GX7, or which one is your workshop camera that I'm gonna see you pull out on a workshop?
Right now, it's a little bit of both. I'll usually, if I'm just going to grab a camera, it's usually the GX7.
Okay.
There's a couple of things that the X7 does, like focus peaking, for example, that the GH3 doesn't do, and so that's kind of my go-to machine right now. I cannot wait for the GH4.
I was gonna ask you about that because that kind of
And
combines the best of both worlds, right?
it really really does. And I'm not, I'm a big nerd. Don't get me wrong, but I'm usually not really hot for the next thing because usually the advances are so incremental. But the 4K video notwithstanding, our buddy Julio sent me a JPEG out of a pre-production GH4 at ISO 2500 that it looks like 200. I mean,
Wow.
it is the cleanest file. Man, I can't wait to get that sucker.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as far as my workshops, I'll have that hopefully by the time we go to Costa Rica later this year. So that's going to be insane. Of course, I have to buy a new computer to work with the 4K video, but
yeah, of course, yes, you do. So does that mean that your primary, when you get the GH4, that'll be your primary, and then the GH3 will become your backup, or will it be the GH4/GX7?
Well, the reason I think I'd keep the GH3 as a backup is the same battery grip.
Oh, just the form factor.
All the accessories will fit. Absolutely. That's just one less set of battery chargers I'll have to bring with me.
Very cool.
So
awesome. All right. So what's next for you? I mean, so we've got Costa Rica coming up later this year. What's baby coming? You got a busy 2014.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, I just finished. As we've talked about it before, the GX7 and GM1 book for Peachbit Press. I just sent in the last chapter this Monday, about 2 weeks ahead of schedule. So my buddies at Peachbit are trying to get it on the shelf for photo shoot in Atlanta for the 1st of April.
Okay.
So I'm crossing my fingers that they can push that through. But trying to get that done, then having a baby in a couple weeks, and then I'll be up to my elbows in that for a while. And then, I'm shooting a hockey game at the end of March up in Buffalo, New York.
Yeah.
I have the name of the camera store, but it's a Lumix event. And I'm sure you can check my website. I need to get some links up for that. So we'll actually take a group to the Buffalo Sabres game and shoot through the little photo holes in the corners of the glass for the warm-ups, and I'm looking really forward to that. That'll be fun.
That's an interesting point you bring up, because one of the arguments against Micro Four Thirds that I hear is that it's no good for sports or fast-moving type environment. So, and there's no good long glass for it. I know you did a YouTube video on the 100 to 300. Right. Is that what you're going to be taking there? And tell me about, or dispel those rumors if you can, that shooting fast action is not possible with this type of gear.
Well, I will say the complaints that people have are about the focus tracking. So when you put on that AF mode, the autofocus tracking is not as reliable as, say, like the Nikon 3D tracking. But from what I found, just in AFC mode, the continuous autofocus mode, the camera will use predictive focusing if you're in high-speed drive mode.
Okay.
So it won't run at the full speed, but it will track us that way. And I find that works really well and really reliably, more so than the actual tracking focus mode where you touch the screen and it kind of tracks the thing.
Right.
But I like to use back button autofocus on the GH3 and the GX7, and I'll shoot we have an East Coast Hockey League team here in Atlanta, and I was using the 35 to 100 2.8, so basically the 70 to 200 2.8 equivalent, basically to capture the action. And there's a lot of times I'm usually not even shooting that racked all the way out at a 200 millimeter focal length. Yeah. So I'm actually What about that 100 game on Tuesday?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm taking a group to the hockey game on Tuesday to do a little workshop here in Atlanta, and I will be taking the 100 to 300 to do some of those a lot of the NHL pictures right now are almost on ice. You know, they're really tight shots of the guys, and I'm going to try to get some of that stuff going too, where you can really see the, you know, like the goalie's face through the mask and that kind of stuff. So
yeah, yeah. Now, what about the that 100 to 3? No, that's a 100. Which lens is it? Yeah, 100 to 300, right?
mm-hmm.
So
Right.
you have that lens. I saw your YouTube video on that. So tell me about that one. Is it, is it a good lens, an okay lens? Is it a must-have lens in the long zoom focal length range for this format?
I think so. I think so. I had, like a lot of my Lumix gear, I had that lens before I was like a Lumix guy, before I was on the team. And the reason I initially bought that lens over the other options are there's a little space back of it where you can put a tripod collar.
Mm-hmm.
So with any long lens, you're not going to use a, you know, full frame 600 millimeter lens without a tripod.
Right.
It's just not, you know, because it's this big, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The other lens, the Olympus, I think it's a 75 to 300, doesn't have any sort of facility for that tripod collar. So locking the lens down on the tripod makes a huge difference in the sharpness of the images that you get. Plus, I think it's about a half a stop faster. It's a variable aperture, but it's f4 to f5.6. So you're talking about a 600 millimeter f5.6 lens that's the size of a travel coffee mug. I mean, it's
right. That's crazy.
It's pretty darn nice. And
does it have built-in image stabilization?
It does. Sure does.
It does. Wow.
And it's great. It's with the new version, the new generation of the cameras where I can shoot at ISO 3200, and I'm shooting at f5.6. I'm still getting, you know, fast enough shutter speeds with a lens like that, which basically a 600 millimeter lens. You'd want to shoot at a 600th of a second, and that's not always the case when you're shooting wildlife, and you know, you're shooting up into the, you know, definitely into shadows, but you can keep it pretty high. I'd love to have another stop or two on that long end, but
yeah. Well, that's cool. The only reason I ask for selfish reasons because I have one arriving Monday, hopefully, you know.
Absolutely.
Which is why I saw your video, because your video was one of the reasons why I wanted the lens, because I'm like, okay,
cool.
All right. If Rob thinks it's okay, it's okay to get. So,
sure. And like I say in the video, if you treat it like a 600 millimeter lens, it's really, really sharp. I wish I had, out in our lobby, I have a 24 by 30 inch canvas print of a hummingbird, and the hummingbird is basically 2 feet tall on the print that I made with that lens wide open at f5.6. And people, even non-photographers, you know, photographers always walk up to a big print and look at it because we're big nerds.
Of course.
Even people who aren't photographers walk up to that print and they can't believe it because you can see every little feather and every little detail. And
wow.
I always laugh about that when people say, "Oh, that lens isn't sharp."
You got to send me a shot of that. I want to see that. I want to
cool.
see. Yeah, I definitely want to see that. Actually, send me that like ASAP, and we'll put it in this video so people can, you know, get an idea of what that lens can do.
Cool, will do.
All right. Well, Mr. Rob Knight, thank you for taking time out of your second baby life to chat with me on the show. Good luck with everything, and I guess I'll see you soon. You're gonna be coming into the Lumix Lounge Live booth at WPPI virtually, just like this, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So you'll be joining us in a hangout on there, and yeah, we'll be in touch.
Sounds great, man. Thanks for having me.
All right. See you later, Rob.
Bye.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that interview. And if you're looking for ways to get excited and inspired about your photography, we've put together some really cool resources for you to download and check out. And you can find those over at thisweekinphoto.com/inspiration. These resources will help you sort of get a kick in the pants to get out there and shoot and kind of understand what it is you should be shooting or what it is you want to shoot when you go outside and you pull that camera out. Once again, that's at thisweekinphoto.com/inspiration.